What the hell? I'm on the video. What's up? Yes. Fuck. What's up, YouTube? It's your boy, Angry Jackalope. Rob Ricks. What a fucking start, right? You get to hear me yelling at my fucking kids. What the fuck? Come close. Come close. We're chasing butterflies tonight. This is a second episode, and sorry I'm a little bit late. It took me a little bit longer to prepare dinner and whatnot for the kids. So um, So apologies. I meant to do this at 5:30, but it is what it is, right? Had to clean up and all the other fun stuff and go from there. All right, so tonight we're going to be doing. This is video number 2 out of 3. This one's going to be a little bit dark, and it's kind of important to lead into the next video to kind of understand some of the shit we're gonna be what we're contending with, I guess I should say. And this fucking hat has not been worn in forever. So it's all funky bunch in the funky bunch. All right, got my net ready to catch them damn butterflies. All right, so let's see. Let's do a roll call real quick here. What's up, Yakety Yak? What's up, Garen? What's up, Jay? What's up, Canet? And what's up, Evan B. Scott? All right. Let me take another sip. One of the benefits when you stay like in hospitals and shit, they give you like cool little mugs and shit. So I use that on a regular basis. All right, you know what? Let's just get comfortable here because let's go. Let's go. Right. So what are we talking about tonight? Well, we're gonna be talking about mind control. We're going to be talking about the efforts that were made by various governments to control populations, which is like an ultra wet dream for a lot of people to be able to control the masses, right? So you could almost argue that television and things of that nature is already kind of achieving that. Internet as well. What is up, Midicus? But you know, the powers that be love to showcase things on movies and television shows and things of that nature, pop culture things, comic books, video games, etc., etc. And you know, one example of that would be like, you know, Stranger Things, right? So you had 11 that was sitting there, um, you know, taken from her mother at birth. It was kind of like a little bit a nod towards Stephen King's Firestarter, where you know you had parents and then the kid, you know, came along and had some extraordinary abilities. And you know, if you haven't watched Stranger Things, this particular kid right here is named 11. That was the number that she was given from the scientific organization that was kind of grooming her and getting her ready. And you might be asking yourself, what does a telepathic super kid basically have to do with this conversation? Well, part of the reason that you see such a huge amount of really evil shit happening to a lot of kids and things of that nature, even from a lot of times it's on the military side. You see a lot of military parents giving their kids into these programs, is because the goal has always been to create superior beings. And what I mean by that is kids that had psionic abilities, whether it be telepathy, telekinesis, pyrokinesis, remote viewing, etc. And for those of you who might be sitting there kind of chuckling at this, understand every military on the planet has dabbled in this, dating back from the Nazis all the way up through current times, even U.S. Army. You know, staring at goats or whatever. Men Who Stare at Goats was kind of a hilarious movie based off of some of that stuff. And you know, a lot of the LSD and things like that had its roots in trying to open people's minds so that they could get extraordinary abilities out of them. And what they found was, um, by doing these types of things to children, they were getting a lot of extra things that they had not anticipated. So, why is there a program called the Monarch program? What's up with the name? It's not a monarch butterfly per se, but what they did discover is trauma that the butterfly experiences will be passed on to its children. So, in human beings, if you break a mother, cause a lot of like a mental break where you have multiple personalities and things of that nature, well, then her children will be easy to break. And then their children will be easy to break, and their children will be easy to break. And if you actually go through the sequence and break each of those sequences, then it becomes easier and easier. And then that, second or third bloodline down is that much easier for indoctrination into the program. Now, it's pretty insidious. And there are different types of monarch subjects. People typically refer to them as monarch slaves. I don't like calling those abused individual slaves, even though that is what they end up becoming in some form or fashion. Basically, they are created to serve a purpose. And they have even created a hierarchy of different types of monarch subjects. So, for example, you have alphas, betas, deltas, thetas, right? And the alphas are just kind of regular programming. They are like the base personality controls. So the original purpose of alphas were to train or condition the mind through a lot of different torture to create like an espionage agent to do certain types of tasks. Program locked in photographic memory, improved physical strength, visual acuity, etc. All of these things by basically breaking and fragmenting the mind in such a way where the person could utilize both hemispheres of the brain for a task. So that was something that they would do different types of things. They would have like on one side of the eyes, they'd have two different images. On one side it'd be all beautiful and nice, and the other side it would be all horrific rape, torture type stuff. And what it would do is the brain couldn't reconcile what it was seeing, so it would just fragment out, and then it was able to do what it needed to do and be able to see both sides and be able to process it. Betas is a combination of alpha, logic programming, beta, primordial, primitive mind, sex programming. So these were the sex kittens. These are the ones that were really popular. These are the ones that they like to use on a lot of celebrities. And we've seen a lot of different celebrities kind of melt down through the years. And a lot of that is because of ritualistic and continual rape and usage, right? So children of knowledgeable persons are being preconditioned through incest and sold into conspiracy for additional beta conditioning to eventually satisfy bizarre, perverse, and perversions of politicians, bankers, drug lords, or anyone deemed valuable to the conspiracy. Deltas were designed for killing. You almost think of like Agent 47 off of Hitman. That's a perfect example of a Delta class killer. And basically it says the program was originally designed to train special agents and espionage agents' minds for becoming fearless terrorists, devoid of fear and basic self-preservation instincts, capable of incredible feats of physical endurance and murder. The new revised edition of Delta has pulled from the Delta program information on training the new breed of men, one who kills and, if caught, self-destructs. So some of that you should sound like, that's interesting, because think of a lot of the times where there have been false flag situations where somebody kills himself. Or if a program fails and they fail on the secondary part of killing themselves, look at how deranged and out of it they look. Like they're like shell shocked, like, I don't know why I'm here, etc., right? Or they might have just been patsies that were sitting there after the fact and just told to sit and wait. Theta. Now, Theta is the one that a lot of these folks would put their kids into these programs with the hopes that this is what they would become. So theta is psychic programming, the exotic one, but not to be confused with paranormal phenomena, fortune telling, or future forecasting. These are examples of a magician's craft, while the theta psychic programming was and is the exploration of the unpredictable fact of human science. The initial results of theta program subjects were inconsistent in that theta project was virtually abandoned before its research completion date. And there were a lot of different universities that were involved with it. But then the Soviets, the Russians, however, invested billions of dollars into their version of psychic research and claimed and proved remarkable successes. Now, some of that's been debunked. Some of that has said, no, that's bullshit. But then, you take from it what you will. With the advances of directed energy research, theta psychic driving is obsolete now. But the theta program head was not dead yet. Theta couldn't die because of the Soviets' reported success. It evolved into biomechanical, human telemetry, and directed target energy involving lasers and or electromagnetics, the result of which were referred to as electronic possession. Ultimate challenge of 21st century exorcist, providing he worked a day job as a skilled CIA support neurosurgeon. So those are some quick notes on it, and it's kind of interesting to point out that they have these classes, and in these classes they also had subclasses where they would give them gym classifications. Now you need to pay attention to this because you see a lot of kid cartoons specifically uses of gems. So you see like there's a hierarchy where like diamond, ruby, sapphire, amethyst, etc. are all being utilized, and you'll see these types of things being played out. Furthermore, you see these types of color coding in a lot of different things. Another thing to look at is in the early days of the MK program, they used Alice in Wonderland and they used Wizard of Oz. Those were two programs that they used heavily in the conditioning of children. Since then, everything has shifted more towards sci-fi. So you saw things like Star Trek, Star Wars, etc. being heavily utilized. That's something for you to note and remember as we continue in this discussion, because there's things to talk about there. So there's a lot of different iconography and symbolism that is telltale for anybody who has delved into MK Ultra. One of them, and you also see some of these similarities when you talk about the Illuminati, right? So the checkerboard is one of those types of things that you see over and over and over. Chess pieces, pawns, you see butterflies in her hair. Follow the White Rabbit, that is the Alice in Wonderland reference. Walt Disney, Mickey Mouse, et cetera, et cetera. Walt Disney, there's a lot of conspiracy around Disney in regards to MK Ultra and things of that nature. So we see things pop in all the time, and there is some overlap with a lot of the occult. So you see things like Osiris, all-seeing eye, one eye. You see different things like that one image on the top, empty head, there's a brain, butterfly wings on it. Everything leads back to brainwashing, the control of the masses. And in the early days, when they were trying to decide if a child was a worthy candidate for MK Ultra, they would do EEGs, they would do a series of psychological tests, they would do IQ tests, and they would only go forward with subjects that had extremely high IQs because they realized the amount of money that they were going to invest into a subject had to have good results. So you didn't want to have low IQ individuals in the program because they would not be able to adapt rapidly to the situation that they were being presented with. So they would use things like EEGs to measure the brainwave. And again, here's a clip from Stranger Things where Will is being wired up into an EEG so that they can watch his brainwaves and see what's happening with him in the Upside Down. There's a direct correlation between the supernatural and the scientific aspects of MK Ultra. There was always a goal. There was always an objective in mind to create superhuman beings to handle a myriad of situations. Why am I bringing this guy up? So there was a hit piece that was put out on this guy yesterday. His name is Simon Park, I believe, and he was a big QAnon advocate, and he was also extremely popular recently with people following his videos and listening to what he says. He's very articulate. He's very likable. He's a very, very nice guy. I like him a lot. I have nothing but empathy and sympathy for him. If you look behind him, you will see a bunch of cards, a bunch of decks. MK is indoctrinated by using cards. Cards have coded messages. Cards have different types of iconography and symbolism in there that is useful and sought after by a lot of MK subjects. It's impulse. If you've watched some of the movies where it's Catcher in the Rye and things like that, there are different things that are trigger markers that you'll find in any MK monarch subject's life. You will find these things and they will not be able to explain what the draw is. They just have an overwhelming urge for it. His story is very interesting because the hit piece that was put out on him was saying he was loony and crazy because he said his mother was a 9-foot tall alien that had 8 fingers and that they had kids and he had sex with aliens 4 times a year, and etc., etc., etc. What I suspect is actually going on is the programming is so entrenched within his mind that every time that they grab him, he feels this floaty feeling. He feels like they're pulling him away out of his body. Those are signs of dissociation. So probably what's happening is somebody is contacting him using trigger phrases, things that were probably inserted into his mind at a very young age, and then he feels like he's being pulled into a spaceship. And then 4 times a year, they're probably reconditioning him. There probably is sex acts that are involved. They tend to do that. There's a high level of sexual promiscuity that happens with monarch subjects because sex is no longer sacred. It's something that's been violated from them at a very, very, very early age. And you could see he becomes uncomfortable in the particular video where they're asking him a question and he keeps saying almost to himself like, yeah, this sounds crazy. But he's not crazy. He's just been programmed. And so this is a drawing of his mother, 9 feet tall. But notice she's wearing a purple dress. Purple is one of the telltale signs inside of MK Ultra programming. Like I said, there's a hierarchy of colors. Purple is definitely one of them that is prominent. Let's see, I think I thought I had another one. I guess I don't have one. He had another photo that was inside of the piece where he was where he was surrounded by aliens and they were inside of a control room. And the guy that was doing the hit piece even commented that it reminded him of Star Trek. Where he was like, the only thing missing is Sulu and Uhura and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that would make perfect sense if it was patterned off of Star Trek, just for the simple fact that Star Trek was a very prevalent tool that was used heavily in the Monarch program. Now, we see here, an individual that is distraught. The brain is lit up. There's a serialized number and there's a bunch of zeros and ones and everything programming. And we have gone beyond the normal MK program. No longer do they need to take a child. I'll back up for a second. In the early days, what would happen is they would have women that were indoctrinated into the MK program that were called breeders. And what they would do with breeders is the sole purpose of that woman was to be a sex slave and then get pregnant. And as she was being pregnant, they would harass and brutalize the child in the womb, causing premature birth. If the child survived the premature birth, then they deemed that child probable in the program because it had a very high self-preservation instinct. And they would mark that child and they would watch that child, and then later they would test the child. If the child had a good enough IQ, then it would be indoctrinated into the program. And a lot of times what would happen inside of the MK program is the trusted people in their lives, the mothers and the fathers, sometimes would be pulled into atrocious sex acts, incest with the child, shattering any of the trust and the bond and the safety that the child normally would feel, leaving that child feeling completely vulnerable and isolated. And then as somebody, a handler would come in and then suddenly assume the protective role to look after the child. But routinely, that trust would be broken over and over and over again to further fragment the subject. What they would be going for is, multiple personalities that they could then zone in on and work with. What they would also do is via electric shock therapy as well as other forms of torture, they would condition in certain keywords, certain phrases. They would use hypnotherapy, and they would have the absolute best of the best come in and create mirrored walls within the mind to prevent the subject from ever discerning or knowing what was going on with them. They might lose time or something, but they wouldn't really trip on it because of their conditioning. They would find some way to excuse it and let it go. That mental programming and blocking, though, had a problem. Usually when the subject hit the age of 30, those mental blocks would start to break down and people would start to remember fragments of their childhood and start to go, wait a minute, I don't understand how that is. And then they'd start asking questions. So a lot of times what they would do with these MK subjects, the monarch subjects, they would put suicide triggers inside the mind. So if they started to go seek out psychiatric help, and then psychologists or psychiatrists would do some kind of regression or hypnotherapy, as soon as they'd hit one of those triggers, then the suicide trigger would kick in and that person would go kill themselves. We hear a lot of times where people are talking today in our age, people talking about being cyber stalked, people hearing things in their heads, things like that. And there's a lot of talk where schizophrenia is on the rise. I postulate that it's not necessarily schizophrenia. They have technology now where they can actually beam voices into your head. And as proof in the pudding, I present you with this silent sound subliminal mind control. So they have a technology, and what I'll do is I'll screen share with you real quick so we can actually look this patent up so you guys can see it for yourself inside of the actual U.S. government patent, U.S. Patent Office. So let me go ahead and let me do this and turn on. Where are you at? Where are you at? Where is my? Here it is. Display capture. Come over here. Come over here. And I will go ahead and turn that on so you can see it. Where are you at? Oh, here it is. It's so nested, sometimes I can't see it. All right, so this is the actual patent, 5159703. And if we go back over here, you can see right down on the bottom, 5159703. So this is the patent, silent subliminal presentation system. So note that they just call it a presentation system, but when you start to read the text of it, it's pretty obvious what they're talking about. Subliminal learning enjoys wide use today, and subliminal tapes are being manufactured by a number of companies in the United States alone. Several decades, let that sink in, several decades of scientific study indicate that subliminal messages can influence a human's attitude and behavior. Subliminal in those discussions can be defined as below the threshold of audibility in the conscious mind. To be effective, however, Subliminally transmitted information called affirmations by those in the profession must be presented to the listener's ear in such a fashion that they can be perceived and decoded by the listener's subconscious mind. So if we go ahead and jump back over here, turn this off, you could see this is this kind of a simplified version of what the technology is. So they're saying steady tone near the high end of the hearing range, say 15,000 hertz. Hypnotist is, dude, seriously? Hypnotist voice varying from say 300 hertz to 4,000 hertz via the mic is mixed together. Output is now more or less a steady tone sounding like tinnitus, but with hypnosis embedded. Brain can hear the voice and understand. Ear only hears a tone or buzzing or ringing. Okay? So for you folks out there that are having really weird impulses and have a heavy duty set of tinnitus that you keep hearing ringing in your ears, don't dismiss that. There might be something that's going on. You just need to check your what's going on and make sure you're not giving into impulses or thoughts that you normally wouldn't be doing, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and continue here. That's that. So and I want to point something out. That particular thing that we were just looking at, this was October 27th, 1992. Let that sink in for a second. This was a patent that was granted and issued October 27th, 1992. Okay? Now with the internet and 5G and all this other stuff and our cell phones and the TVs and, you know, high refresh rates on screens, etc., who knows what technology that they have available to them at this moment. And the reason I'm doing this, the reason I'm even bringing this all up, is not to say, oh, look, you know, this, that, or anything else, but to point out that there is a heavy amount of programming that is happening right now. And we look around us and we go, how did the world get so fucking crazy? How did the world get so upsy down, tossy-turvy, and everything else? Right? Now, I'm going to share with you guys some things that I saw today. I found today. I didn't have to look very hard. These were some things that just in my cursory observation or looking at things said, really? 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 So again, let's go ahead and share the screen here. And what I'll do is I'll take breaks from the screen share to see if you guys have any questions or anything. But let's do the display capture again, switch back over here, and we'll go over to this one real quick. And have the audio off because it doesn't really matter. This has this kind of a droning sound. But these are the symbolisms that we see from time and time again that a lot of people just think are weird or whatever. But I want you to note these. Just look and see these patterns as they are replicated over and over and over again. These are what the Illuminati use to communicate to those who understand what they see and to subliminally brainwash others. And so for those that are indoctrinated in the program, they have to broadcast. It's almost like when there's a pimp and a hoe has to let other pimp. There's like a whole hierarchy of rules that in the pimp world that if I said it to a normal person, they'd be like, wow, that's fucking stupid. That's weird. But it doesn't matter if we look at it and say it's weird. It's what it actually fucking exists, right? So these are a whole lot of gestures and movements and things of that nature. And notice how we see all of this repeating over and over and over and over again. You know, it's not like you have one photographer that says, hey, this would be cool, let's just do this. And everybody says, yeah, let's bite that and do it. No, there's reasons for all of this. Okay. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. Let me cut this down. So this is Will Smith's daughter. And it starts off this video where this woman finds all of these bone fragments and stuff. And then she's all excited. And she lays everything together almost as if she's creating a small altar. She does some kind of prayer or some kind of a incantation, and lo and behold, there's a resurrection. And so here's Will Smith's daughter. She comes back and she's alive. So we have some occult symbolism that happens here, and we see that's Luciferian, in that there is a whole concept that is one of the abilities of the devil, to bring back to life and to mimic miracles. So, and out of the dirt, what do we see here? A butterfly, right? And so she starts kind of rebuilding the society and everything else. And at one point, she's running with wolves. That's kind of an archetype that you see us being indoctrinated into a beast system, where we are reduced from the exalted positions of humanity to being reduced to base animals. And so, a human being normally would not be able to run with a pack of wolves unless the wolves figured that she was an alpha, or she was part of the pack, right? So we have red. Red is another symbolic color within the Illuminati. And then there's another part a little bit later on here where she starts to whisper to a child. Let's see, it should be right about here. So now she's passing on the wisdom and the knowledge, and you can see this is the use of a child. And so she's whispering to that child, and then there's a point here where the child has understanding, and then we see a butterfly. The child has been indoctrinated into the Monarch program. Okay, so there's more, but I will bounce back over real quick to see if I missed anything. Okay, nope. All right, let's continue. Another one is Rihanna's video for S&M. I've already paused it, and inside of this note here it says Rihanna, Princess of the Illuminati, and and it's also got the word slut. And so a lot of times what ends up happening is you get a beta. You get a Monarch beta, which it appears that's what they're insinuating in this video. That is, she is a Monarch beta, and she is designed and brainwashed to the point where she is a sex slave for the very rich and the elite. And there's just a whole lot of symbolism inside of this particular video. For example, the microphones, instead of Fox, they're called cocks, and they have all those cocks aimed at her, and they're all wearing these ball gags and everything else, and her dress has the word slut on it, and they have all these different locations on it, and those could be possibly locations where they've had her in the past, and she's striking a provocative pose, and she's pinned up against the wall. And early in the video, it's very rapey. You see them grabbing her and tossing her around, and she looks drugged, and it's just it's a very horrendous video, to be honest with you. It was quite troubling to see it. I didn't expect this as I was kind of flipping through a list of some of these videos, and I was like, wow, okay. This is a new video. This came out today, and I was very, very shocked and dismayed at this one. I love Lindsey Sterling. I think she is an amazing artist. And here's a video called Lose You Now. And I was just kind of listening to it and just watching it and going, wow, this is a really pretty, beautiful song, right? And so, here she is. She's doing her thing, playing it. She's got a little doll. And I thought to myself, how interesting. It's kind of a dystopian, post-apocalyptic look. And, he's playing a piano, singing a really beautiful song. And, she's sitting there and she's looking through a prism. And right when I saw her looking through the prism, I started saying, uh-oh, wait a minute. There's these symbolisms you'll start to spot when you look at these things as much as I do. Then there was a butterfly, and I was like, oh, you got to be fucking kidding me. They got her. And there's always a price to pay. There's always a price to pay. And so here she is with her father. He's put the violin in her hand, and you can see she's emotionally responding to it. And there's a lot of under normal eyes, you'd look and say that's beautiful, father and daughter. But there we got this, the one eye, right? The okey doke and the one eye mixed together. She fell down, building the trust, you know, and there's the monarch, right? So we see the butterflies inside this, and she's like, okay. And I thought, you know what, Rob, maybe you're reading way too much into this. Maybe, you know, and there's some dissociation right there. And I thought perhaps I'm just reading too much into this, you know. That's what's going on. And I'm seeing this stuff, and I'm like, well, there's some definite dissociation and some, you know, mind escaping to a fantasy world type thing. And so she kicks back, she drops her toy, childhood toy, and you know, she's heading back to whatever she found, these memories or these fragments, and there's somebody following her, right? And so she's, you know, where's my doll? Shit, where's my fucking doll? Right? She's like, shit. And then I was watching with bated breath at this point. Oh, now there is the tearing away of her memories, of the fragmentation, you know, and through trauma, you know, she's sitting there and she's like, fuck, I've lost it all. You know, I've lost the memories. I've lost these fragments. I'm losing my touch with what I remember is real, right? And now this was the goal. This was always the objective of the monarch, which was to create extraordinary beings capable of the impossible. So here we have telekinesis. Here we have, you know, just some form of power manifesting, right? And she lashes out. You know, she has the ability, and they freak out and they run away and they're like, holy shit. And there's that floaty feeling, right? Rising up, being much more, and there's the monarchs again. So, you know, I was a little bummed out when I saw this because, you know, yeah, perhaps this was just a coinky-dink, but I don't think so. I don't think so. So those were some of the ones that I found earlier, and it was troubling to me to see that last one. But again, these are just things that I wanted to kind of point out and share with you guys because it didn't take me very long to find those. It literally, some of these just fell into place as I was just sitting there working on shit, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And you know, we need to be able to discern and see in the world what's going on around us, and also understand and have empathy towards people that are being controlled. You ever wonder why there are some people you try to talk to, and no matter what you say or what you do, you just can't get through. You just cannot get them to see your point of view. And it's also in some ways vice versa. Sometimes people might approach you with a counterpoint and you just can't fathom or understand their position. You go, why are they so fucking stupid? Well, it could be that you're both being programmed to fight against each other, because we're surrounded by programming everywhere. And there is, in some ways, baseline magic being done, right? Good night, Tenchi. So, yeah, how many coincidences does it has to happen before it's no longer coinky dink? You know, that's a good question, right? Like, at what point do you say, all right, you can understand, like, if something's in vogue, right? So let's just say leopard print's in vogue, and the runways all through Paris has leopard print. Well, I would fully expect that season to see a whole bunch of leopard print, and then the next year it might be something like zebra print. But if you go back 30, 40 years, we are seeing the same symbolism over and over and over again. And you hear these Hollywood insiders that are blowing the whistle, talking about these horrendous things that are happening, and people just go, no. And it's important to know that there is a very sophisticated disinformation that happens where they put the truth out. They tell you the fucking truth. And they have things that get leaked that are the truth. But then we never see anything happen from it. We never see pedophiles, high profile pedophiles being prosecuted. And then something like the QAnon movement comes along, and everybody's like, yeah, see, look, yeah, right. And then when it comes out that that's one of the biggest psyops that ever happened, well, then people are left questioning what the fuck is real and what's not real. That's why I had to do this video, because the next video that I do, we're going to do a deep dive into what's actual, what's factual, what's not, what's real, what's fake, as far as what we can discern. And we're going to take some of these people that have been on the Q side and kind of talk about them a little bit. We're also going to talk about politics. And you guys who have been following me for a long time have heard me straight say over and over and over again, it's all theater. Well, with this type of stuff, I can give you a little bit more context. It's not just theater, it's theater of the mind. This is conditioning. This is programming. Nobody in a modern technology setting is immune to the amount of programming that happens. There's a lot of times you'll watch a movie or a show and you go, propaganda. There's some fucking propaganda in here. Yeah. You're seeing that particular propaganda because it is against your worldview or against your positioning. But how much propaganda do you miss that is completely aligned with your ideological point of view? And then you have to ask yourself, well, where did this ideological point of view come from? Where was the genesis of it? One of the things that's very difficult to do is to take a hard look at yourself, and go back in time and see where certain thought processes began. Because a lot of times things are so organic, it just evolves over time. You can't pinpoint a singular event. Whereas if you had some form of trauma, you could remember, oh man, the reason that I don't use my left arm very much is I fell and I shattered my forearm and I had a compound fracture and it stuck out and I got the scar here. So something like that's very easy for you to pinpoint. But when you started to feel like, you were a conservative or you were a liberal, at what point did that solidify within your mind? So there's a lot of things that are happening in the world right now that 10, 20 years ago, we would have said that's insane. That's loony. There's no fucking way. So understand with the programming that we go through on a daily basis with our favorite TV shows, our favorite books, our favorite, entertainment, do not be surprised if, in addition to that programming, there could be things that are happening while you're sleeping. We don't tend to think too much about the ringing in our ears. We don't go, wow, when it's really quiet, I have this really pronounced loud ringing, or wow, I've got this headache suddenly, or how many times have you watched TV and like a Taco Bell ad comes on or something, you go, damn, I want a taco, right? Because it is so prevalent in our society today that I would be surprised if Monarch 4.0 has not been fully implemented and pushed out as a control tool against us right now. So, as I said, be kind to your fellow man, because they have the same things going on with them as you've got going on with you. And some might even have it worse. Some might be fully indoctrinated into some kind of a program where they are being ritually abused. Now, you've heard me say that, ritually abused. Why is that? What is the significance there? Well, there are things that people will talk about, like adrenochrome, which is, if you go Wikipedia and you go to these other places, it's just a chemical compound that is adrenaline and has been oxidized. Okay, and of course, adrenaline comes from the adrenal gland. And there was a lot of stuff that QAnon and some others were talking about with adrenochrome and Pizzagate and stuff like that, where children were being raped and murdered and killed and harvested. So they were the adrenaline secretion from the fear and everything else was being harvested. If this sounds familiar, the Stephen King movie, that was out not too long ago, which was the sequel to The Shining. The monster vampire chicks that were in that were the exact same thing. They would grab these children, they would torture and hurt them, and then they would, inhale the essence from these children, and they would capture it, and then they would feed off of it later. Well, there's some real world parallels to that with adrenochrome, and so, the mainstream media and all these others have debunked it and said that that doesn't exist. Well, where else have we seen something harvesting from children that were terrified? Monsters Inc. So again, Hollywood loves to show us all of these things that exist, but put it in such a way that if somebody tries to have a rational conversation about it, people look at them and say, dude, you're fucking crazy. A good example of this is conspiracy theory with Mel Gibson. So he's coming out and he's in the beginning of it talking about fluoride, talking about CIA, talking about all these different things, and it's supposed to make it so that with anybody who would talk about those topics would be easily identified and say that dude's fucking nuts. What's up, Simicon? Good to see you. So another video that I saw this morning that I was like, what? And it was like this morning was actually a pretty interesting morning. And I took that as a sign from the Heavenly Father for me to do this fucking video. Because at first I wasn't going to do this. But it is, let's see. No. I'm trying to find it. No, it wasn't this one. No, not that one. It was this one right here. So Lana Del Rey, she actually made a video where she talks about chemtrails, right? And I think this one right here is this was Alex Jones one. They actually have a let's see, augmented version right here. This is the one I want to find. But I got to make sure I mute it here. Let's see if I can play it. Well, I guess it's not going to play it. But Lana Del Rey, I think that's how you say her name. But anyway, Chemtrails Over the Country Club. And it starts off with the CF bar conversation about stuff. And it's like, interesting. So things that we've talked about in the past that have been in the realm of conspiracy is now widely accepted. Now, why is that important? Well, because the way that things get down is, it's kind of like 911, right? When people first came out and talked about it, they were people that got really upset and angry and mad and said, you're a fucking idiot, you're a moron, blah, blah, blah. And then later on, some people said, oh, maybe. And then now a lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people say, oh, yeah, everybody knows that. Right? They just accepted it. Well, now we're seeing that with chemtrails. Chemtrails, before, if you brought it up, people would fight you tooth and nail. You're an idiot, dude. That's the stuff that comes off the planes. There's no geoengineering. You're a fucking moron. But conspiracy theorists, forever and a day, were saying, no. This is somebody flying up, dropping shit out of the fucking plane, and it's doing something to the sky. And people are like, no, you're a fucking moron. Well, now there's general acceptance to it, to the point where even music videos are being made by high profile celebrities. Now these high profile celebrities a lot of times are controlled. So you can see how there is fight against it. Okay, now it doesn't really matter because there's bigger fish to fry. Go ahead and make that part of the general consensus or general knowledge. So there's a lot of craziness that goes on that people aren't aware of. That's why it's almost like, okay, are you in the Matrix? Do you take the red pill or do you take the blue pill? Well, a couple years ago, my wife started to go down a rabbit hole, and I warned her, you can't unsee certain things. If you go down this path, I can't tell you to not think about it. Once you see things or you understand things, you will never be able to unsee them. And she was like, okay, fine. And when she started digging and she started finding things, boy, oh boy, she had a rough time with it. Me, I'd come across things and go, yeah, that makes sense. It's fucked up. It's evil. But that's what we're fighting. We're fighting evil that is not new. This is not a new evil, guys. The evil that we find ourselves against is old. It's very old. And they got really, really, really good tools. And so for any of us that are like parents, um, if they start releasing movies, videos about flat Earth, I will eat my hat. Yeah, I don't think you have anything to worry about because I don't think there's actually the way that the flat earthers presented a flat Earth. I think this is just a holographic scenario that we are existing within, and so it's just it's like a plane. It's like playing a video game, right? You got boundaries and everything else, but and I think it's inconsequential. Like I think there's a space and all this, but I don't think there's necessarily like the aliens and stuff because the aliens have been used as an archetype within the MK program for decades and decades. And we see such a huge prevalence of it, and it's also conditioning because there are technologies like Project Bluebeam and everything else that could play a role. We suddenly could start seeing alien spacecraft and things of that nature and be like, oh my god, the aliens are fucking here, right? It's one of those things where you need to question the reality around you. You need to question your own thoughts, and really pay attention because it would be really easy. And some people have been saying, well, I mean, if we look around, we see domestic violence increasing. We see a lot of relationships going to shit. And people are saying, well, it's because COVID lockdown. People are spending a lot more time with each other and blah, blah, blah. I'm not spending any less time with my wife because of COVID, really, in the grand scheme of things. And, there's times when our relationship gets tested, but like, we aren't having nearly the problems that we see a lot of people fucking having. But, at the same time, I see my kids and I see some of the changes that they're going through, and some of it is very abrupt. Some of it is very suspect to me. And I've had my kids telling me things like sometimes they'll have these horrendous nightmares where they see horrible, horrible things. And as a parent, sometimes you'll just go, oh, okay, well, active imagination. Maybe they watched a movie, or maybe, they their friends were talking about something, or they saw something on the internet and subconscious working through it. Maybe not. As a parent, I would suggest everybody talk with their kids. Make sure that you pay attention. Now, here are some things that you need to be very wary of if your kids start to tell you about these things. Finding themselves in long lines of going to like a theater where they are putting them in chairs and making them see horrendous things. Think of Clockwork Orange, right? Think of the ultraviolence, right? Where inside of a Clockwork Orange, they had him sit in there and they actually opened his eyes and then they showed him things over and over and over to kind of program him. Well, now they don't have to do that. Imagine if they can program you via sleep. So what you want to ask your kids is, hey, do you have any reoccurring dreams? Do you have any reoccurring troubling dreams? And don't lead them. Ask them questions. If they start talking about gyms, they start talking about pretty women in dresses, like purple dresses, red dresses, and then ask them, well, what do you talk about in your dreams? If they have vivid recollection of the conversations and they tell them things, you want to know what those are. Keep a journal, find out. Because I suspect a lot of these kids are getting indoctrinated while they're sleeping, and there's a sophisticated artificial intelligence that I believe is behind all of this now. I think this program has transcended any kind of thing where it even requires human interaction. I think they just put objectives there and the program runs its way. Get Out springs to mind as well. Exactly. We have movies where we have these Hollywood folks creating these things. We go, wow, that's horrible, right? And then we're sitting there looking at that, and then as you're watching him with the hypnosis and falling, a lot of times that falling or rising or whatever, that's a dissociative feeling. You feel floaty. You feel like you're levitating or floating out of your body, or you're having an out-of-body experience, right? A lot of these things that have kind of an pseudo New Age type thing has a definite scientific explanation. They are using technology to achieve the supernatural. And then you have to ask yourself a question, Well, who is advising them and telling them how to create this type of technology? There are some groups that talk about, um, these extra dimensional beings communicating and telling us how to do certain things. Well, that's problematic because, some folks would call them, extra dimensional, or they would say they're aliens from a different dimension or whatever else. But what else sits in other dimensions? Potentially could be demons, and demons can look, a lot of the aliens is funny when you look at a lot of the aliens. Like if you look at Geiger's Alien, right? That was off of his Necromonicon. That was what he depicted demons as looking like. So when Ridley Scott said, "Hey, let's take this. This is the perfect fucking alien," that was horrific. It was scary as fuck. And Ridley Scott wanted to rape the audience with his movie. He wanted to rape the critics with it, and it kind of backfired him because it became this cult phenomenon and everybody loved it. And so he's like, well, fuck, okay, whatever. But even the grays and all these other things, when you stop and look at them, you can almost say, damn, they look kind of demonic, right? But now we don't look at those as demonic. We look at those as, well, it looks like a fucking alien. Well, how do you know it looks like an alien? Because you've been indoctrinated. You've been programmed to say that's what a fucking alien looks like. So this was just kind of a quick, not so quick, but a primer about the existing programs that have been declassified, and on our there's record of these things happening. There's record of the ritualistic abuse, the torture of children, to be part of this, MK. I mean, even in our movies, if you look at Black Widow was a person who went through the Soviet version of the Monarch program. It's right there constantly. What was Salt with Angelina Jolie? That's another one. You could probably find all the Treadstone stuff, Born Identity, Born Ultimatum, Born this, Born that, Jason Bourne. Jesus Christ, it's Jason Bourne. That's all about Monarch. And so anyway, I felt it was important to do this because this kind of furthers the conversation that's going to happen in the final video, which will be in about I might even start it in 10 minutes after this one. But yeah, it's we are in strange times now, guys, and for me, this is old news. I've been studying this shit for a long time, and I'm pretty intimate with it. So, it's one of those things where I see this shit everywhere, but I figured it's probably good to kind of educate you guys so you start to see it everywhere, and then you see it for what it is. Especially parents, watch what your kids are watching. A lot of the cartoons that are out there, straight programming tools. There's one that even have different gems, these characters that represent different gems, and it's spooky. It's spooky. Disney, happiest place on the planet, right? Anyway, that's gonna be it for this one. Yeah, I will be back in a few minutes to do the big one. We're gonna be talking about current events, things of that nature, revelations of certain things, and possible proof that the whole QAnon was nothing more than a very huge, elaborate psyop. Alright guys, so that's going to be it for now. If you like it, please subscribe, tell your friends far and wide. Until next time, motherfuckers, please be good to yourself, good to each other. Go out, live life to the fullest, ride the bus to the wheels fall off, have some adventures, get some scars, find some love and all that jazz, and I'll see you motherfuckers in about 10 minutes. Alright guys, later.